do you describe SpyParty to people who don't know anything about it?
Well, it's funny, I actually describe it differently. It's one thing I used to work on Spore with Will Wright, and one thing I learned from Will, I asked him how he talks about games to people, and he says he describes games completely differently depending on who's listening, right? So if it was a programmer I was talking to, I might say, oh, it's a reverse Turing test. If it's a behavioral psychologist person, I might say, it's a game about like making consequential decisions with partial information. If it's like a gamer type person, I might say it's a really intense player skill game, but about human behavior. And so it kind of varies. I have a whole bunch of like aesthetic goals I have for the game, like some of those, like I just said, like intense player skill game. I mean, when we last talked, we were at EVO, right? And showing a game like that looks like The Sims at EVO is kind of an interesting thing. And so, but the player skill aspect of it is really, really intense. Leaderboards and like, in fact, that EVO that we talked a couple years ago, a guy named Corey saw the game, and he's now top of the leaderboard, like 300 plus hours in the game, and is like a phenomenal player. So that kind of, making a game that's basically about subtle human behavior, but that appeals to that kind of intense competitive thing, but without a lot of like, there's no map navigation or button, the level of micro in the game is much lower than most player skill games, for example.
So talk a bit about the asymmetry in the game. You've put a lot of work into making each player have a completely different experience, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like I'm really proud of the asymmetry because it's like a lot of people talk about a game like StarCraft, which is another a really great game, another intense player skill competitive game, and they talk about it being asymmetric because the Zerg is different from the Protoss, is different from the Terrans, and at the end of the day, like that is true, especially at elite levels, but like there are a bunch of dudes walking around on screen, whereas here it's like completely different games, two completely different games overlapping in the same space. So the spy is playing a deception game, a game of blending and hiding in plain sight. They can't do anything to get back at the sniper, or there's no backstabbing. You can't walk outside the party and stab the guy in the back or anything like that. It's you only can deceive, whereas the sniper can only perceive. Right? There's only a perception game. They have the bullet, single bullet, to make their choice, but it's really like there's no violence in the game proper. It's the threat of violence, kind of a Hitchcockian use of violence in that sense. Like, as soon as you pull the trigger, the game's over. Like, there's no interactive violence at all. And so that asymmetry is really interesting. It makes the game really hard to tune, but these completely different games overlapping in the same space. It's just really interesting to me. And trying to do that with a really hardcore player skill competitive game and keep it balanced is difficult, but really rewarding.
So how long has SpyParty been in development?
A very long time. I mean, I was, I got laid off from Maxis after Spore, so like 2000, that was 2009. So it's been 4 years full-time, and then I had a thing in my IP agreement with EA that allowed me to work on it part-time there. So I worked on it a couple hours every week for a couple years probably before that. And then I have no idea when it'll ship, but it's an open beta right now on SpyParty.com, kind of like a Minecraft or Frozen Synapse or Natural Selection. And so you can buy the game now and just get the updates, which is great because it allows me to fund the game while I work on it, not trigger my perfectionism issues around calling it done, so I can kind of get it out there, people can play it like this, but I don't have to call it done, which would totally make me freak out. So I can kind of do that for a long time, which is great.
So what do you think about that kind of Minecraft funding model? Do you think that more developers should experiment with that, or do you think it's only certain games that can really make that work?
Well, it's certain kinds of games that will work with an open beta, but for those kinds of games, I think it's a superior funding model. So the kinds of games are things like competitive multiplayer games like SpyParty, UGC, user-generated content games like Minecraft, a roguelike like Spelunky, games that have a lot of replay value. Like, you're playing the same game every 3 minutes in SpyParty, but it's a totally different game because it's just like a fighting game where it's just an intense competitive thing. In Minecraft, you're like, let's do this completely other thing we're going to do. In Spelunky, like every time you play it, you get a different map. And so for games like that, it works great. For a game like The Witness or a spoilerable game, it wouldn't work very well because a puzzle game, especially a narrative or a puzzle-based game that is half done is just broken. Like, it doesn't work, right? So whereas SpyParty, if I can get one map working, then, the intense fans, and people are like, oh, you want me to pay for it now? It seems so early. I'm like, no, I don't. Like, if that's how you feel, that's totally fine. Like, you can just follow along on the blog. That's totally fine. Twitter, the blog, Facebook, YouTube, blah, blah, all the normal things. And whenever you feel comfortable, whenever you feel like it's worth your money and time and investment, like there's bugs in the game, yep. And the whole point of having a beta is some people love to, and this is what Minecraft kind of popularized, but people were doing it before that. In fact, I asked Marcus about what he calls it, and he called it the Cortex Command business model, which was who did it before him. And So it's just a really healthy model because like someone opts in, they're like, okay, yeah, I want to like this level of bugginess and polish.
Yeah.
Whatever you dial it in at is right for me, but I get early access. So like there's a forum for, private forum for beta testers. I take tons, like the last map and last mission were both player suggested. The next thing I'm going to do is also player suggested. So like there's a lot of feedback on the forums. There's a big bug database on the forums and or a bug forum, sub forum, where we keep track of all the bugs. And so it's just a really like organic development process. So you just kind of can opt in whenever you're comfortable, and that's great. As long as I can keep enough people joining that I can pay my bills, then I can just go for as long as it takes to make the game perfect.
So what is that perfect version of SpyParty? In your mind, when will you know that it's perfect? Is it a level of graphical polish?
First off, it's a level of gameplay depth, right? So like the stuff you can see here now, the new art coming in, is barely playable. You can actually play the map, but it's not like tuned like these other levels. But I have a ton of stuff I want to do to the game that has nothing to do with the art. So the art's part of it, sound design, that kind of thing, but it's more about depth of gameplay for me. Like I would, if I hadn't, like John Cimino, the amazing artist that worked with me on Spore, if I couldn't have gotten him and I couldn't find an artist that I was happy with, like I would ship it with I did ship it in the sense that it's open beta with the crappy graphics because the gameplay is what's most important, right? I want the game to be beautiful, but I want it to be beautiful as a game design first. So I don't know exactly what finished looks like, but deeper than it is now, and it's already pretty deep. So, I've got the 300-hour players, and I got to take that to the 1,000-hour, because then you're starting to get in the real, like, poker, StarCraft, Counter-Strike, that territory, right?
So is there any way that you can calculate the percentage of completion that you're at right now?
Oh man, the easiest thing I always say is it's always 2 years out. Of course, it was 2 years out 4 years ago, so who knows?
Awesome.
I can get it right now, so like I don't really feel that much pressure. I feel pressure to make the game awesome, but like some arbitrary shipping, especially since all the consoles are starting to do early access stuff too. So it's like I can just put it on the consoles without it being done too, which is great.